and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who would like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. All ready for another podcast episode?
Yes.
Excellent.
How are you today?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm very well, thank you very much. Thank you for asking. Let's get started on our podcast. Well, and as we mentioned in our introductory podcast, we're going to be doing a series of interviews with coaches around coaching, and I've already had my turn, so now it's your turn. So I'm delighted to say that this morning I am going to be interviewing Helen. Ta-da!
Yay!
So just a little bit of background. Helen is a women's empowerment and confidence coach, and she is also a coach trainer working with me on the Transformational Coaching Diploma for Doctors. She's also a coaching mentor, and she also is an accreditation assessor for the Association for Coaching. So has a wide range of roles within her coaching activity. So let's get started with the interview, Helen. Tell us, how long have you been coaching for?
I've been coaching now for about 7 years. So started back in 2016, just had to quickly do the maths on that to make sure I was right.
So since 2016,
yeah.
And thinking about that, how did you get started in coaching?
Well, I think it's quite interesting actually, because I have been doing training and workshops and personal development work with people for many, many years. And 2015, 2016, people were saying that I was offering coaching, and I wasn't. I was doing some training, doing some mentoring and personal development, and I wanted to explore coaching, but I didn't ever want to be a coach. And that was because my experience of coaching had been very goal focused. I'd worked with a couple of coaches, and it was, what are you going to do? And when are you going to do it by? And why haven't you done it? Because quite often I didn't. And I didn't want that very almost transactional approach. And it wasn't me. So I kind of shelved the idea of being a coach. I didn't like that label. And then I went through a very difficult time in my personal life. I got divorced, I changed locations, I moved house, and things were very challenging for me. And I discovered an organisation, a women's leadership organisation. I did some work with them for myself, and it was transformational. It was very helpful, very powerful. And on one of their retreats, they suggested that they were going to be running a coach training program, training people in the type of work that they were doing, using their tools and so on. And I just thought, wow, this is actually what I've been looking for. This is a different way of coaching that is in line with my values. It isn't that very yang, goal-focused coaching that I'd experienced in the past. So I went for it and I trained with them and haven't looked back since, really.
Very good. It's fascinating, isn't it, the way that we come to coaching? I think I mentioned in my episode that I had some coaching, and that's what drew me to it. But interesting that you were actually involved in what people thought was coaching before you ever thought about becoming a coach.
Yes.
And then actually it was working on yourself that brought you into that field of actually providing coaching for other people.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. So you did your training, and say through this women's leadership group, and you obviously got your badge, your coaching badge,
yes.
So you could get out there and start coaching. But that's very different. Having the skills and the training and the badge is very different to actually being a coach. So how did you get started once you had your training?
Well, I've been self-employed for a long time, and I did what I knew worked for me, which was to go out and meet people. I took the idea of what I wanted to offer as a coach, and I went to the networking groups and organisations that I'd been to previously, and I looked for any opportunity where I could speak, where I could run a workshop, run a presentation, do a 10-minute talk, anything like that, where I could get across my message and how I was able to help people. And I generally offered the opportunity for someone to have a free discovery call with me to find out if coaching was for them. And that really helped me to find clients and was very successful for me.
Very good. So it's actually being proactive, getting out there. I guess a lot of people these days would turn to social media and have a website, have a LinkedIn profile, and think, well, that's it. People will come to me. But quite often it is that proactive element, that offering to speak at events and getting your message across to people.
Yes, and explaining what coaching is, and people getting to know you and know that they like you and feel that they can talk to you. And that's really important, obviously, in coaching, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And obviously you'd had that experience prior to your training where people thought you were coaching. So there was that misunderstanding of what coaching actually was. So educating people about what that coaching space is designed for can be really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I did all the online things as well. I had a website and I had a LinkedIn profile and everything else, but I wanted to get out and do that activity, get in front of people, and spread the word, so to speak, because also we can help people in doing that to be educated and to explore more about themselves. And the next step may well be for them to have some coaching.
Marvellous. And we've already said you're a women's confidence coach, which gives us a bit of a clue as to who your ideal client is. But let's just expand on that a little bit. Tell us more about your ideal client, Helen.
Yes, I work with women who usually over 35, that's just the age that tends to fall into this category. They've reached a point in their life, usually a crossroads. Maybe the children have gone off to university, or they've got divorced, or something else has happened, or they've just sat and thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Is this the direction I want to continue in? So they've got to this point where they're questioning their life going forward, not necessarily questioning their life choices up until that point, but where am I going from here? And quite often those women have been doing all sorts of things, all sorts of roles, all sorts of jobs, and quite frankly they're usually exhausted. So we usually start with that and get their energy up to a point where they are better resourced to make the decisions that will give them a fulfilling future.
Very good. And
it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell. And thinking about what we were saying earlier about people not understanding what coaching is, people might be forgiven that, well, coaching is just coaching. Everyone does coaching in the same way. But we know from running our own training program and using lots of different approaches on our training program that there are a number of different approaches you might take to coaching. So tell us a little bit about your style, your approach to coaching.
Yes, my approach, much like yours, I think, is very integrative now. And the way that I was trained to coach initially has changed because I came off my course and I explored other avenues of coaching. I practiced other methods. And so I pulled together, yes, person-centered coaching to spend time and allow that person that space to talk and to reflect. But also, I absolutely love positive psychology and positive psychology coaching interventions. I often will use a solution-focused approach as well. And also, one of the things that I do that may be a little bit different is that I will use visualization and meditation techniques in my coaching as well, just so that we take into account the whole of the person. It's very holistic, and we explore things on every level, on a cognitive level, on an unconscious level. And also I love to work with embodiment and how things feel in the body and how we can use our body to alter what's going on in our mind very often, how we perceive ourselves and how we show up and are perceived by other people.
Lovely. And I've been witness to you running a session at our conference with 70 odd doctors in the room, all embodying different states. So getting into that state of being ready for battle or just being energized or being relaxed. And it's amazing. Great that they engaged and did the exercises, and but lovely to watch and lovely to see how people do. own that physiology, how they embody different ways of being. So
Yes.
great, thank you. So that's the way you approach coaching, and obviously every coaching conversation is different, and every coaching client is unique. But just thinking about things that you like to do in the coaching room, what's your favourite coaching tool?
Well, I absolutely love a wheel, and we talked about the wheel of life and how it could be used for all different things in episode 4. And so I like to use a wheel in a variety of different ways, but one of my favourite ways to use it is a wheel of energy, and looking at the different ways that we gain energy and scoring where we are on them now and how we can improve them. So I think probably wheels are a good tool to use. Obviously, you don't want to be using a wheel every session. I mean, you probably could, but it might get a little bit, it might become a little bit of a one-trick pony. But it is a really, really useful tool because it can be so visual, and our clients can gain really new perspectives from using it and from the reflections and from then gauging where they are now, where they want to be, and how they're going to get there.
Marvellous. It's fascinating how you can use that wheel in different ways. And I'm curious about the wheel of energy. What sort of things would go onto a wheel of energy?
Well, if you start with really basic elements that nourish and sustain us, we might look at how good we are at nourishing our body, how good we are at hydrating our body, how good we are at moving our body, what our sleep is like. What would we score ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on the wheel, where 1 is not very good and 10 is I get brilliant sleep every night for the right length of time and I wake up feeling energized. So they're the main ones, but there are other ones because everyone is different. So some people might look at the things that nourish them in terms of meditation or connection with friends or quiet time, all sorts of things. Usually I start with the basics because that's what everybody needs to have a good level of energy to face the day. And then if you're facing challenge or change, you need to have a pool of energy that you can pull from, and you need to be well resourced. So you need to top that up all the time. Every day we need to take action on nourishing and sustaining our energy. And so not only is a wheel of energy useful in the coaching room, but it's useful for clients on an ongoing basis. They can stick it to a wall and look at it every day and say, what do I need to do today to be okay and to have good energy? So I think that's why I like it so much.
Great stuff. Thank you. One of the other questions that we're going to ask our interviewees when they come along is what your favourite coaching question is.
Well, I've been thinking about this because I do love your favourite question. What would you like to have happen? I think that is a fantastic question. And there's another question which is not dissimilar, but I like to use it. It opens things up in a different way. I like to ask, if there were no obstacles, what would your heart love to do?
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah. And it seems to, I don't know, it seems to bring in the emotions a bit more. And it almost takes away from the thinking side of it. Well, I need to do this because I need to earn money, or I need to do this because it's the sensible thing to do. I know we're always trying to get underneath that, and asking what would your heart love to do seems to do that for a lot of people. So I like that question.
Yeah. And I can imagine that in asking that question, emotion might well appear in the coaching room.
Absolutely.
There might be an emotional response.
Yeah.
And interesting, I've been having a conversation this morning with a coachee, and that emotion came up for her during the coaching, and she was a little bit embarrassed to start with that emotion was surfacing, but I just reassured her that her emotions were welcome and that they will surface and they will dissipate and we will carry on with the conversation. But it's an important part of the coaching that if we're still engaged in that transactional coaching that you talked about, people used to think was what you were doing, we don't see so much of that. People just stay in that headspace of, well, this is what I think and this is what ought to be done.
Yes.
And don't go to that emotional space. So it's great.
Yeah, and you do have to be careful where you ask it. I remember asking someone I just met, and she was talking about her work and career, and I said, oh, if there was no obstacles at all, it was a very flippant conversation. What would you love to do? And she burst into tears, and I felt awful because, it's not the coaching space. And actually, it was years before I did coaching that I asked this question. But yeah, she cried and then told me what her heart would love to do. And then we did later have a conversation about perhaps how she could move towards that. But it was it was just a social event. So with great power comes great responsibility with these questions. We have to be careful.
Quite a bit of Spider-Man there. Well done for that. Sneaking that in. We take our wisdom where we find it.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thinking about what you do beyond coaching, because I know we've already talked about other strands to your business world. What else do you get involved in doing?
Well, as I mentioned, I have also been training for many years and was asked to get involved with some business training a few years ago. So I've worked a lot with new business startups, and that's something that I've continued to do. And we offer, obviously, as you know, to those going through our coaching diploma. So I continue to do some business training and personal development workshops, and obviously the coach training alongside you on the diploma.
Yeah, and that business side of it is really interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of those coming to our coaching training, the doctors that come along, have perhaps never thought of themselves as business people. So they come along thinking, well, who am I to be a coach in business? That's a bit weird. But a lot of them are. I spoke to a GP partner some time ago and said, well, I've never run a business. I said, but you're in partnership as a GP. That's a business.
That's a business, yes.
She said, well, I couldn't charge for things, but it turned out she was doing appraisals that were being charged for somewhere along the line. So there was a little bit of imposter syndrome there around charging people for her coaching. But when we dug down into it, she definitely charged for things she was doing, definitely had been in business. So it's interesting, isn't it, what people have in their heads of what they can and can't do.
Yes. And obviously then you mentioned that I do accreditation assessment, which is great. I love doing that, working alongside the Association for Coaching, assessing those applications as they come in for being accredited coaches. And in an industry that's not regulated, I think that's a great thing to do, to show people that you have agreed to a set of ethics and are working on your personal and professional development and all of those things. So
and you get to watch people coaching as well, so you see how other people are doing it.
Yes.
I love watching our students when they come to the end of their course. We always get them to video a coaching session and send that in to us so we can watch it. But I love watching that. I love to see the journey people have come on when they start off a course and they're being very directive and really struggling to ask open questions. And then you watch them run a 20-minute coaching session where they're doing all that, applying all those skills they've learned and having really good coaching conversations. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. So when you're not coaching, training, assessing, what are your hobbies and interests away from work?
Most days at some point you will find me either at the gym or at the yoga studio, preferably at the yoga studio, because I absolutely love it. And I also love learning new things. So combining the two, I'm right in the middle of a yoga teacher training qualification that I decided would be fun to do. And I also love to dance as well. So we've said before, that's how we met, dancing. And I've tried all sorts of different dancing over the years. And I think I might try adult tap dancing next. That could be my thing.
Excellent. Don't fall in the sink, will you?
Very funny. That's a terrible joke.
A terrible joke. I'm embarrassed myself now. Yeah,
Please
lovely.
leave that in.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey, your coaching journey.
You're very welcome. Well, I'm looking forward to our next podcast episode as well, which is about a new coaching model that we're going to share with you, that Tom's going to share with you, so that you can perhaps try it out in your coaching sessions and see how you get on. So tune in for that. And also don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Lovely. Thank you, Helen.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.